Welcome back to Your Inner Spark. I'm your host, Lana, and today we have a very inspiring guest with us. Someone whose creative talents are not only beautiful, but they have profound purpose. Joining us today is Heidi Curley, an artist who is on a mission to help others heal through artwork. So, without further ado, welcome, Heidi. Thank you for sitting in this conversation with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Heidi, I ask every guest this. First question is, when was the first time you felt your inner spark or that inner pull or that inner tug that is that led you to the path that you're on currently?
I think that it was just after my husband died. He died in 2010. He committed suicide, and it changed my world forever. It was a very hard time. We had three young girls, and they were young at the time. And so I thought, now what am I going to do? And I had an old canvas laying around, and I was a labor and delivery nurse, by the way, for 20 years before he passed away. So I knew that I probably wasn't going to be doing that anymore. And I had this old canvas laying around, and I just squirted a tube of paint on it and just started spreading it around. And I remember just feeling the sheer relief of stress. And I just painted until I didn't feel that anymore. And I thought, wow, this is what a powerful tool. And so kind of that's where I started my art from there. And I used it to heal me, and it did heal me, and it did save me.
That is so powerful. I think there's so many healing powers in any creative outlet. Can you share with us a little bit of your backstory once you discovered artwork or just art creation in general and what it did for you in your own process, how you've kind of evolved into what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so I started just kind of, I was really loving that feeling that I was getting once I would kind of smush around the paint. I would use my fingers or sponges or, um, you know, paintbrushes, and I was finding that I didn't like I felt like using paintbrushes was too confining. And so I just really would explore with my fingers. I loved all the sensory that you would get from that, the smell of the paint, the coolness of the paint, the texture, and then just really smoothing it around and making something that, like, wow, that was kind of cool. I had never painted before, so I didn't have any art, painting history in my family, any of that. So this was a really a very private just exploration for me, and working through that. And what I started doing, there was a lot of journaling after my husband died. And I was never a journaler before because I was always afraid, like, what when you die? Like, people are going to read your diaries. Like, why would you write anything in them? And so I never had that for a practice. But after he died, I just really needed an outlet. And so I began writing. I would either write on the shower door and kind of just wipe it away because you could wipe away the words with the steam. And then I started writing on like any paper that I could get my hands on. And I would do that every morning, get up and write, or have it in my bag and have, always be able to have access to it. And then I started painting over the words. And I really felt like that was another spark, if you will, of really feeling like this is life changing. And I could really be very brutally gut honest. I mean, when you go through a tragedy like that, um, my family left for a couple of years, and his family didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore. And there was a lot of blame. They were blaming me for his death. And I didn't understand that. I thought, and mental health was not talked about back then and all of that. So there really wasn't, I really felt alone and felt like, how am I? I mean, I was seeing a therapist and, doing all those kinds of things too, but I just felt like I needed this outlet. And thank goodness I chose a healthy one. I've been told that many times that there's so many other things that I could have done to kind of dampen that pain. But so I would write. Sometimes it would be just a paragraph and that would be enough. Other times I would just write for an hour. And then I would just take my paint and squeeze it on there and just start moving it around with my fingers. And so what it did is let the stress that was building in my body, give it a place to land outside, and then be able to cover it up. I mean, a lot of people will like write something and then they will burn it. For whatever reason, that just felt kind of creepy to me. I didn't like doing that. And so I really found that painting helped. And so then it just kind of kept going from there. Then I started doing this series where a lot of chairs would show up. And I really felt that's kind of when I felt like I was on my journey of wanting to help people, and make them know that they matter, and that they're not alone. That was my biggest thing. I'm like, we have got to find a way to stomp out loneliness. And so that's kind of my tagline, if you will, now is to let people know that they matter and to stomp out loneliness. That is why I get up and do art. Um, and so I kind of was making these chairs, and people would say to me that that's so lonely. You just have a chair or two sitting there, like there's nobody in it. I said, that's because it's waiting for you. And so I didn't see it the same way people were seeing it. I looked at it as I will always have a chair for you at my table. You're always welcome here. And so chairs started showing up. I thought, okay, let's just go with that. And they just had um, such huge emotion to them, just in a simple little chair. And I started using watercolors and just different mixed media. I love tearing up things and making collage work too. I think that's it's a very healthy, you kind of go in your little moments. And then I started creating a lot of people, and the people again were not fake, because I am an abstract artist. I am not like, you want me to paint your dog? Sorry, that's not me. I can't do that for you. And I just started creating all these people, and they were from, like, you would be looking at them from the back. And again, people would say, why are they always walking away? And I said, no, they're walking towards the next thing. So I think my art kind of, it has deep meaning and deep story behind it. All of my pieces really do come from that place in my soul. But I would say the biggest thing is to reach out to people and let them know that they matter. And it can be the smallest little thing that you do. So I teach classes in my studio just on that, about art journaling and kind of getting that out as another way we don't talk about, a lot of people, like, if you say, oh, we're going to do some journaling, they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to talk about my feelings. Don't be getting up in those, don't be doing that. So it really is just getting over to the right side of your brain and allowing your left brain to just kind of stay out of it for a while and have a place. I mean, I don't care. You can write your grocery list. You can write, I don't know what to write, a million times. I don't even care. But we just spend the first maybe 10 minutes or so just writing something. And it's interesting when you watch the people that come and gather around the table, and they get emotional, even if they're trying to hold back the stuff. And then we start painting over it. And every single time people are like, I really, like, they haven't thought of that, that you can paint and then, or write and then paint over it, and what freedom that brings. So that's a little bit about that.
I love that so much. There were so many things that you said that resonated with me. First, just the fact that you found art as a creative outlet, and like, I view it as you found a way to self-soothe during a very difficult time instead of self-medicate. And it's really easy to
Yep.
choose the path of self-medication, and it can come in many, many forms. So I think that's just so powerful. And it really indicates that you are, like, you're turning your pain into a passion, into your purpose. And
Yep.
I don't think there's any better way to confirm that you are on the path that's meant for you.
Yes.
I love the chair analogy, because I feel like in my own creative process, although it looks very different, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this podcast, is to have an empty chair for whoever is listening to say, you are not alone. And that's been my motivation for sharing so much of my deeply personal experiences in my life, is because for so much of my life, I felt very, very lonely. My
Hmm.
mission now is to let other people know that you aren't alone, no matter what you're going through. Right. So I found that
Yep.
very beautiful. And I love that it was very, very similar agenda, just it looks completely different. So I thought that was very beautiful.
Yeah, and
In
I
your
think that that's great that that there are so many different ways that you can work through the process, and what works for you may not work for me, and vice versa. So I think it is about getting, I want to just shout it from the mountaintops, that you matter, and it's okay. It's going to be okay. But we have to, one of my art teachers, Alita Field, she was one of my, I wasn't ever trained like in like art school. I didn't go to art school, but I did take some art classes. And just after my husband died, it was about, I don't know, a couple of months or so, she's like, you need to come down to the studio, and we have this thing called Art, Women, and Wine, and we paint, and we meet every Tuesday. And so I did that, and it was I was painting, and she always makes us paint this, I always call it the stupid barn, because everybody has to paint it, and that's just how she starts you off. And I'm like, I can't get it right. And she's like, you have to have the dark darks to have the brights. right? And so I always say that it's like we have to have the really dark times. That's when we do our major learning, if we will do the work, right? But you have to walk through it, and you will get to the light. And I promise you will. I've raised 3 girls. They're very successful. They're doing great. Kind of with the same thing. They learned right along beside me, and I knew they were watching everything that I was doing and saying, and how I was grieving. And that was very important to me, that I, not only because they're young women being raised in this world, but because it you can use it for anything. I was listening to one of your podcasts about losing your job, and that's something that you can do. You can sit down and write and write and write, and then you can paint over it. You don't have to,
Mhm.
and it's not about hiding the words so much. I mean, sometimes, yes, that is the outcome, and that's what you want because you're sharing such private stuff, but it doesn't have to be. It's more about the process of being in the right side of your brain and really doing something healing, and the endorphins that get released, and how, you know, without getting too woo woo, right? It's just like it just does this magical feeling, and to know that that's not going to go away. That it's not, you don't have to use expensive paint. You can use a paper towel as your canvas. You can, there's so many different things. So it's not, you don't have to be rich to be able to do this art. You don't have to, have a certain thing. It's just, you just need a couple supplies and you can do it. I mean, I was at a coffee shop once and I didn't have anything to right with. So I took the napkin, reached over and grabbed a hunk of bark, like bark dust. And you know how when you draw with that, it was kind of that reddish color. I
Yeah.
did that, and it's so you can find stuff wherever you are. So I just, I will scream it from the mountaintops until the day I die. It's that I believe in it so much.
Well, first of all, there's no limit on how woo-woo you can be on this podcast because I'm quite woo. But
Good
I
to
totally
know.
I totally agree that you have to have the darks to have the brightness, because I think the people in my life that shine the brightest are the people that have walked through some of the darkest times. And
Yeah.
it is just a matter of taking that pain and channeling it into some kind of purpose and choosing to see all of the beauty in life and choosing to be grateful for things. After our conversation the other day, I was thinking, okay, I am somebody who doesn't like to be bad at things. Okay. So starting
Mm-hmm.
something new is challenging for me because and for most of my life, I've nailed a lot of things that I've tried. Right. But when it comes to
Yeah.
creative processes, okay, that's completely different. So I've always been good at like academia, schoolwork, that kind of thing. And this whole podcasting process on its own has been a unique challenge for me because it is just something that's brand new. But anyway, after we were talking the other day, I was like, if I had a piece of paper right now and a pencil,
Hmm.
I don't know if I could sit down and just draw because I would pick it apart.
Yeah.
I don't know how to draw. I'm not good at this. And then I kept coming back to, well, even with my podcasting process, I've been very open, or even with journaling, writing, because writing is really important to me. It's never been about being perfect, or even learning how to dance and express myself through my body. It's like releasing this expectation that it needs to look a certain way. Why can't I do that same exact thing when it comes to just artwork?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
is that a common barrier that you see with a lot of people, that they don't even want to try and start any sort of artwork process because it's like, well, I'm not going to be good at it, like the
Yeah.
expectation that they have to be good.
Yes, because I'm not an artist. That I'm not an artist, I can't do that. And I'm like, "Oh, honey, if you don't think you're an artist, I'm not either." Like I was not trained with that. And I would say take a piece of paper, take a napkin, take whatever. Take whatever kind of thing can make a mark. It's about mark making, right? So think of that. Think of, and some of your marks happen to make letters. Some of them happen to make words or sentences. But you can draw a line and get the same feeling, right? So I always start off my workshops where you do not need to be an artist. Do not be precious about anything. This isn't, and the glory for me too is that I'm an abstract artist. So there are no, like, it doesn't have to look like anything. I know it's abstract, right? So that's kind of a nice thing about that. But yes, I would say probably 90% of the people that come to my workshops are, you can just tell, you can feel this nervous buzz, right? Like they're just
Mhm.
like, I don't know, and why am I here, and I paid this money, and I don't know, and I can't do this, blah blah blah. So I go through all of that, and we just really try to throw all that out the window, and just really try to make them comfortable, and knowing that it is just a mark. So I don't care. What's your favorite letter? I just make that like E's. Okay, make a bunch of E's. Just make a bunch of E's on there. If you can't, what's your favorite shape? What's your favorite whatever? And then I have a bunch of things laying out on the table. Different, there's pens, there's crayons, there's markers, there's paint, there's all kinds of things. And then we kind of start on just making marks on the paper, and then you can feel, that they start. It takes a little bit. Sometimes it may even take a half an hour for us to get into it. But then it's the most beautiful thing when you see them start to let go and release. And then they're hooked, right? Then they're like, give me some more of this. Like, what else can we do? What else we can do? We may do a little bit of collage. There's something healing about tearing a piece of paper. And I want you to listen to that. What does it sound like? What does it feel like in your hands? And now we're going to take some glue. And if you will, I always like smell the glue too, because that'll bring you back to your elementary school days. Like I love the smell of glue. And so, and the ones that are still kind of very type A and just like sitting there like whatever, but I haven't yet had a workshop where I haven't been able to break through and let people really feel there's a lot of tears, there's laughter, just a real sense that you're giving them a lifelong tool, right? That they can use forever. And like I said, it doesn't matter where they go. I always have a baggie of something in my tote bag when I go places, or a thing in my car. And you don't have to have a lot of stuff. That's the whole well, I can't because I don't have the time, or I don't have a studio, or I don't have enough money, or no. So I break all of those. Another thing, this is a sort of a little bit of a side note, but my girls, when after Ed died, we would do like a truth and a lie column, right? Like the things that we tell ourselves that are for sure the truth. Like we know that is the truth. We write it down, and then we're like, is that really the truth? And then on the other side, you write, what the real truth is, and then you realize that is a lie. So that there's a lot of that we keep telling ourselves, and you and I know how toxic that is. So I think getting that out there too, another message with them, that that we tell these things over and over and over every day. And so I think using this art in a way, set up your practice so that it's a very soothing thing, and only the plus things stay, right? And then they look at it, and they go home. A lot of times we do a little mini journal, or sometimes we'll do a canvas, but they go home with it. And I said, I want you to set that somewhere where you're going to walk by it, and I want you to know that you matter every single time you walk by that you matter. And some will cry again. You just really get them into they get it. They believe it. They want to practice it. And they come back to me, and just like, that changed my life. That was really and like you touched on before about it being a healthy thing. Because we all know you can do everything to extreme. Well, I don't think it's bad to do art to the extreme, right? I don't think you can make too much art. We need more art in this world. Art, it's very healing. And so I've been very, very thankful. And it's like, out of the darkness of his death, right, comes the light, where then maybe I can touch people's lives and help them find a way because I've talked with a lot of people that they've dealt with suicide, either they've thought about it themselves, or they've been touched by it through a friend or family. And they really, it does work, and it doesn't cost a lot, and it's easy, and it's very, it really can be life changing if you'll let it.
I love that. I think there's so much power in that. First of all, just having a tool that you can use without many supplies, or not having to invest so much money into getting started, is so beautiful, because we know that there's a mental health crisis existing, but professional help is not accessible for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's so powerful to have tools that we can utilize at home. And a huge component of my healing journey over the last year and a half has been getting out of my head and into my body, and really focusing on stopping at multiple moments throughout the day, and actually like checking in with all of my senses. So when you were talking about the creation process of being able to smell the glue, smell the paints, feel the texture of the paints, the coolness, the temperature of the paints, I just thought, okay, like this makes sense. All of the components coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think in any kind of creation process. So for me, I've always preached that journaling is so important, right? But obviously there's not a one size fits all. Like my path is not going to be for everybody. But for me, when I sit down to write, I could be feeling in my brain logically like a certain way about something. And then I put that pen to paper, and sometimes I'm completely surprised at what comes up. Sometimes it's something that I wasn't even thinking about, but it was sitting in my subconscious. It needed to be addressed, or I'm always surprised by what comes up when I put pen to paper. And I feel like that's exactly what happens with the creation process that you're helping people navigate. So I think there's so much beauty in this. And I love that we're having this conversation, because I think for a very long time, I've been very much preaching, like, you need a journal, you need to write, you need to write. But you know what? No, there's other ways that you can get in touch with your emotions, that you can connect with those underlying feelings that you're having, and just have an outlet for them, whatever that looks
Yes.
like. And just the fact that now, like you said, we can't overdo art. We can't overdo art. I
Mhm.
think that our purpose then as humans on this planet is to create, whatever that looks like. And I love the idea of them people then having a piece of artwork in their house that reminds them every single time that they walk by it that they do matter and that they are important. And I've had somebody really close to me struggle with a lot of suicidal ideations, and now I'm like, okay, I'm going to be dragging this person into your class, because I think also to meet somebody like you that's walk the path that you have and is able to say, like, I mean, I think it's important for anybody to hear from the people that they love that you matter, but just to have somebody so closely impacted by it, I don't know, I think I have like goosebumps
Mhm.
having this conversation, because I'm like, what you're doing is it is changing people's lives, it is
Well, and I
impacting
think
people, and you can feel it.
okay. So a couple things when you were talking about that. I think um, when you talk about journaling and how people they may not resonate with that. I think with color, you can you can have maybe the people don't have words, right? Like they're feeling all this stuff inside of them and they don't have the words for it. And so what I help them do is pick a color for that feeling. Like or we'll start an exercise like okay, I want you to paint anger, and so whatever that looks like for them, and so you don't have to have words, you can just use color. And I think that kind of breaks the barrier again with like, or pick your favorite shape or your favorite whatever, and just do that, because people do get blocked, or it's really scary, or maybe I was beat when I by an adult when I would express my feelings, or
Mhm.
when I would journal or whatever. And so I think that there's so many things, just because I wasn't raised with those traumas. um they exist. There's all kind. We come from so many different places, and I think that's what this grief work and healing from the trauma has done for me. And kind of, you want something, not that it's like a blank thing, like this is going to help everybody. I mean, some people they don't want to paint, right?
Mhm.
But I think for those that I have been witness how much it changes people, and how they just feel like they have like a friend in their pocket, and they don't feel so alone, right? Because they can go to their canvas, whatever that looks like. And I mean, I paint on newspaper. My dad lives with us, and so he still gets the newspaper every day. So I'll grab that and tear that up. And, that's very nostalgic for me back in the day when we always used to get the paper delivered. And, so I think that it can hit everybody. I think it's just for me, it's the job of collecting the people in my space to be able to get the word out that this works, right?
Mhm.
And that it can bring joy, and then you see them and then they start painting for other reasons, right? Or they feel like, oh, look what I created, or and it gives them a good sense of not only healing but maybe a new path to something else.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean, I
even
never
thinking,
thought that I would be painting. I never
yeah, yeah.
thought that would be. I was a labor and delivery nurse forever. And I'm like, what? Painting. And I remember the first time somebody said, are you selling that? And I'm like, selling what? No, those are my feelings and my emotions. No, I'm not selling that. And then I started creating other things that I could sell. But I just remember thinking that was really weird. Like, why would you want my feelings? But it's the connection that you make when you create something, and somebody, the onlooker, sees something different, that maybe that wasn't even my intention of painting. But they look at it and they bring their stuff to it, and it really resonates with them. And I think that's what art as a whole does for people, is make the connection.
Yeah, because even when you're saying that just now, I'm like, that's what music does, right? Like music, an
Hmm.
artist creates a song, and then we kind of all have our own interpretations of how that music makes us feel.
Yep.
So I was thinking when
Yep.
you were speaking just now about how I have a bunch of nieces and nephews. I have 10 nieces and nephews, and how they draw, they create, like they're not writing yet.
Hmm.
Some of them are, but from a young age, we have crayons, we have markers, and we draw things. A lot of times they're drawing things that are important to them, their family. Maybe it is just their feelings. Sometimes I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? But it's some emotion within them that's being expressed on paper. And I
Yep.
just, you know, like I just had this moment where I'm like, okay, well, we are all still those little people with it. You know, those little people still exist within us. All those emotions still exist. And it has it's just really encouraged me to be like, okay, I'm going to try something different. Like, you know, I've really figured out, okay, these are the outlets that feel really good for me, but I haven't even contemplated artwork because it's always been, I'm not an artist. You know what I mean? But if you had
Yep.
asked me a year ago,
Yep.
would I be doing a podcast when I've worked in finance for 10 years? I would be like, no, you know what I mean? So it's like, we don't know until we
Yep.
try.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
do.
that's the takeaway is like, just try it. You don't know until you try. It might
Yep.
end up being something very beautiful and
Exactly.
therapeutic.
Exactly.
So in your studio, do you tend to see that you have people that, you know, they come back consistently, or is it a one-time thing and then they take that practice and they go into, you know, they just start doing it at home? Do you have any kind of setup for people that are navigating something very difficult, or is it, you know, what does that process look like in your studio for people that are dealing with grief or complex emotions?
Yeah, so I just moved into this studio. It'll be a year in January, and so it's still kind of new. Like, what do I want this space to be? I share it with two other artists that are amazing, and we have very different art styles. And so we've called it the 411 Collective, Art Collective, because it's the address is 411. So that kind of worked out nice. So we're just trying to kind of get the classes set up. I make it very clear that I'm not an art therapist, and that I use art as therapy. So I have had return people come. What my hope is that I will have an ongoing thing set up where it's, once a week, like every Wednesday from this time to this time. And either something where it can be like you don't have to come every single week if you don't want to, but it's kind of like another safety net, or I don't know really what the word would be, but you can come if you're having a bad day, a bad week or whatever, and you want to come in because you know that that's going to help. And there's just something so powerful about sitting around the table with other people, and the way that, and mostly it's been women, to be honest. I don't even think I've had any men come, but and they need it. The men, they really need it. That's
Mhm.
a whole nother level. But the women, how they get together, and some are real quiet, some are real talkative, but by the end of the night they really feel like they've had this connection with some other people. And some people come from a lot of money, some people have really, big careers or whatever, some are staying at home with their kids, some are in school, so there's all kinds of people, but the underlying thread, we all have emotions, and we all have things that we need to work through, whether they're big or small, and it depends, because of how you've been treated. Like, I like what you said about the little kids. Yes, when they draw and they scribble and they do all those things. And then you get that one teacher, that one parent, that one friend that says, what is that? Or you're not an artist, or that art isn't even a career, or, we just have to call bullshit on that. So, and, just really, I wish that, I wish that we could all go back to our inner child, and play and create. And that's why it's a lot of, just the big swooping letters, or, kind of trying to get back to that there's no expectations. And then guess what? Pretty soon they're starting to write little words. I don't want anybody to see it, but I might write a little word in here. Oh, I might have a big thought, or whatever, or the way that they're swooping with their paintbrush with a lot of globby paint and getting all that rich, yummy texture, So that's kid like. That's like what we did back when we were kids, and the exploring and the playing, and the letting go, mainly the letting go, and being able to know that it's okay, that you, if for these 2 hours that we're together, you are in a safe space. And sometimes that's all they need to then be able to, bounce off and be able to be okay and take that with them. So yes, some people come back, some people, one time and they're done, they're good, or they didn't like it, it didn't work for them, and that's okay. But like you said, just try it, because what if this is the one thing that your body has been waiting for, or your mind has been, or your soul has been waiting for, and can make a huge difference. And what a huge gift to yourself. And then go spread the word to everybody, and maybe you'll find one more person that it will resonate, the same, and help them heal. So that's like my biggest thing. It's like the old megaphone, and just shout it to everybody. Just come try it, and see what it'll do for you. It will touch you. It will touch you on some level. I don't, like I said, I haven't had anybody that said, well, that was dumb, or I didn't, they
Mhm.
all, it got them. And sometimes the ones that say, yeah, I think it got me, that it got them bigger than they're even able to process in that evening. So I love it. And yes,
Yeah,
you have to come try it.
I'm gonna come here real soon. I was
Good.
thinking about so something that I have always said that is when you heal everybody around you heal the people around you too, right? Like when you
Mm-hmm.
really start to heal and your light really starts to shine through, that light touches the people in your inner circle and it has a
Mm-hmm.
ripple effect, right? So I love the idea of trying it. And then if it works for you, like spreading the word, because think if it's you
Mm-hmm.
found this technique that really works for you and you can, spread it with as many people as possible, it's a ripple effect, right? And it's going to make
It
your
is.
community, your
Yep.
family, your friend group, your partnerships, whatever, stronger. So, and then another thing that you said that really resonated with me, and we talked about this previously, but is the fact that most of us feel very free to be creative when we're young, right? We dance freely, we draw, we do whatever, crafts, and we don't fear judgment at all, right? And I'm just thinking of my experience of navigating the school system. Uh, I realized when I look back, I was a really creative child. When I was in kindergarten, I was making scrapbooks. Like I loved arts and
Mm-hmm.
crafts. And I was obsessed with Lisa Frank. I think Lisa Frank is now non-existent. But I loved bright, colorful crafts. And you enter the school system and then I don't know, after a certain point, maybe it's middle school that they really start to push STEM. So you're really maybe it was my family. I don't know if it was the school system or it was my family, but math and science and those STEM subjects are really, really pushed as if you want a career, if you want to be successful, like these are the subjects that you must follow. And I was really good at schoolwork. And so I think because I was good at it, I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is my path. Right. And then somewhere along the line, you enter adulthood and you get into the mundane 9 to 5, then at that point I started working in finance. And somewhere along the line, I adopted this narrative that I wasn't creative I mean, um, so if you had asked me even a year ago, I would have said I'm not creative. Like I'm a very type A person. I've always just viewed myself as like this, you know what I mean? I worked in finance. I'm very smart. I have an
Mm-hmm.
accounting degree. I would have I would have told you that I was not creative. So somewhere along the line, I adopted this idea that I wasn't creative. It was then fact in my brain that I wasn't creative. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even try anything new. I didn't even try to be creative. And I was journaling, but I guess I didn't even view that as creativity because I've always thought of musicians and artists and that kind of thing. Um, so I guess my message for everybody is to, if you have that same narrative, if you also believe you aren't creative and it's preventing you from even trying anything, really examine that. Is that fact? Or is that just something that you've told yourself for so long and now you believe it to be fact? Because now I would consider
Yeah.
myself to be an extremely creative person. My art form is speaking, it's words, okay? I love to speak and I for me it's words are my art form, but yeah, I just think I if I followed that path, there have to be so many other people that have also, like, you get sucked into the school system and then you think there's this one way that works for you. And as you said, like, being an artist is a career path and we need more
Mhm.
artists. So I
Yeah.
love the idea of somebody just coming to a class, trying it once. Maybe it will spark something within them and they will end up completely changing what they want to do, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, and I think as far as artists being a like that being an okay thing to do for a living, I had this amazing mentor. Her name's Jody King, and she's out of Austin, Texas. And I had the pleasure of working with her in a very tight knit group for 6 months. And she said, I'm calling bullshit. Like art is a real thing, and we can make a living at it. And she's badass and she's good. And I think that it's just we do get. I think the way the schools are run and the funding and like so many things we just heard again that one of the art programs that we had here in our town is being affected. And it's like we need to not be making these little stress bodies. We need to be having a more well-rounded uh life for these kids. It's creativity is in all of us, whether you're doing woodworking, how you rake your leaves, maybe you rake them into certain little there's art in everything. And I think that I really especially for the young ones. I love working with teen girls because I think that's a very fragile. And I've my husband now has two girls, so we've finished raising five girls together. And so I know girls. And of course, none of them were the same. They didn't have the same personalities. The discipline didn't work for any of us. So, like, you were starting over every time. And I think that, it's very important for them to have an outlet and for a lot of the bullying starting. And just it breaks my heart, and I think that those kids that are doing that are coming from a place of darkness, and either they're modeling the behavior that's shown at home to them, or they're just super sad, or I always tell my kids, if there's anybody sitting alone, make sure you go sit with them. And, they did a lot of, started programs in their high schools that was on suicide awareness and prevention because of what happened, to their dad. And so I think that there's just so much good. It's like we don't wish he was gone, but there's been so much that has come out of it. Some of it was forced upon us, but some of it was by the choices that we made, that here we are today. And I think we're all productive citizens and really kind, that kindness matters. The words you say, they do matter. And you matter. Today I'm involved in this program. I hope I don't hang up on you. I'm involved in this program called Only 7 Seconds. I'm wearing the t-shirt today. So I'm an ambassador. They're based out of Chelan, Washington. And it was a mom, her son was sick and he was in bed for an extended period of time, and none of his friends reached out to him, nor his siblings that were out of the house. And his mom called them and said, kind of basically, shame on you. Call your brother. It only takes 7 seconds to reach out and tell somebody that they matter. So on the 7th of every month, I go out with sticky notes or just in person. I have a list on my phone of 10 people that I reach out to. So every month on the 7th, I will either go put sticky notes on cars or hand them to people. And I love doing it in the grocery store for some reason. Everybody's busily pushing their cart, and I'll hand it to them, and it's just a little note, and it might say you matter, or I love your smile, or I see you working so hard, or you're trying your best, don't give up. And, whatever it is, it can be anything. You hand that to them and they just tear up because somebody noticed them. It wasn't like we were just all shuffling, down the bread aisle together. So I love doing that. And that's just another way that we can spread kindness and you matter. So I did a live video today on my Instagram account, kind of showing that, like, just reach out to just make a commitment with me, just to reach out to 7 people on the 10th of every month and tell them you matter. All you have to do is, hey, buddy, I'm thinking about you, or how are you, or, isn't it raining so much, or the leaves are pretty, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I think a lot of times we make things that we think are whatever we're going to be doing has to have this huge, ginormous impact. And no, it's actually all the little tiny things that we do on a regular basis that makes people feel like they belong. So I think that's important too.
I think that's so beautiful. So the 7th of every month, right?
The 7th,
Okay.
because it only takes 7 seconds for you to reach out
Yeah.
to somebody. So they pick the 7th of every month, and it can be, big things, little things. It doesn't have to, and it makes you feel good. You know how it is when you do something. You, like, when I'm feeling down, I also taught my kids, when you're feeling down, go do something for somebody else. There's nothing that will get you to a better place quicker than reaching out. There's always somebody worse off than you, always somebody else that, maybe you're having a really good day. So go spread that, and, try to seek out somebody that, is not, that's struggling. There's a lot of, transgender stuff going on, and just the amount of abuse that these people are getting verbally and physically sometimes too from people. It's like, no, we just need to can we just love each other? And I don't mean
Mhm.
to be like all sunshine and unicorns, but it's just, can we not? Like, is it that hard? There's so much, just getting up every day is hard, and facing
Mhm.
whatever you have to face. So I'm a huge, huge, huge kindness matters person.
Absolutely, it does. And I do think that the little things do matter, because if I'm out and about and total stranger gives me a compliment, or even we exchange a smile, it makes me feel better. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it is, those
Yeah.
little things do
Yeah.
matter. They do add up. And even in our own close relationships, I think sometimes we're all sucked into the madness of being an adult, right? And I
Hmm.
think it's really easy sometimes to just get lost in the sauce and think that, oh, well, I'll reach out when X, Y, and Z takes place or whatnot. I'm going to
Yep.
start that today. I'm going to reach out to
Yeah.
10 people,
Good.
and
Good. Yay.
do that moving forward. It's a commitment. So I really like that. And I do think
Yeah.
bare minimum, it's going to make me feel better because I
Yep.
totally agree that it makes you feel better. But it's like if we can start spreading kindness, spreading love, it has a ripple effect because if we do that to some stranger and they're like, oh my gosh, that made me feel better, somebody handing me a post-it note or just giving me a compliment, and then they're encouraged to do that to somebody else, that is
Yep.
how we spread love. And I was reading this weekend about the law of attraction because it's my new latest obsession, but it was talking about how it's very easy for us to focus on what we don't want, right? So we
Yeah.
say in a relationship, for example, we don't want we don't want X, Y, and Z, and we put all this brain energy and all of our attention on what we don't want because we're trying to like keep these limitations and these boundaries around what we want to make sure we don't get what we don't want. But when we are so heavily focusing on what we don't want, that's actually what we're attracting into our realm,
Yep.
into our reality. So it's better for us to focus on what we do want. So it's really easy to say, um, to think about all of the things that are existing that we don't want right now. But what we do want is we want more love, we want more peace, we want more kindness. So why don't we just start focusing on that? And
So
I do
go,
think it will have
yeah.
a
So
ripple
go do
impact.
that. Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
go do that. Right. Yeah. And I think that, and then, like you said, it does, it makes somebody feel good. And then maybe it's that they're going to be nicer to their kid when they get home. Maybe it's that they're going to be, I mean, you don't know what people's stuff is. And it doesn't, I've never had somebody say don't say that,
Yeah.
and it could be the littlest things. Like you said, I think we wait until it's something big, monumental, like, oh, I'll wait and celebrate them when it's their birthday, or I'll wait and celebrate them, whatever. And I think if we try to really make a conscious effort, and it doesn't have to be big. I think that's why I like I choose 10 people. You don't have to choose 10. You could choose 7. Pick 7 people you want to reach out to. And just, you'll find that in your mind as the month goes by, you'll be like, I wonder what 7 people I'm going to pick, and
Mhm.
doesn't mean you can't pick more that day, but it's at least 7. And so you know that you are going to make an impact on 7 people that day. That makes you feel really good in turn, so I think it's just kind of that cyclical. And I look for it. I wear my shirt the 7th of every month and I go out there and I tell it to whoever will listen.
Yeah. And I think if there is somebody that's really struggling, because I think of just, somebody that's close to me that struggled that we previously talked about. I know for a fact that if a stranger came up to this person and said, "Hey, you look beautiful today," or "Hey," you know what I mean? Like it would have a
Hmm.
lasting impact. It would have a major impact. So we don't know what people are struggling with. We don't know what people are going through. And if somebody is hanging on by a thread and they receive kindness and love from a total stranger, it might be that thing that within them goes, okay, you know what I mean? It makes them feel less
Yeah.
alone. It gives them that.
It makes them say, I'll stay one more day.
Exactly. Exactly. That gives me
I
goosebumps.
know it
That's
does
very.
me too. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have the feels now. Yep. Because it's true. And it's so easy. And it does not cost one thing. It does not
Mhm.
cost you one thing.
So, okay. Well, anything else you want to tell the audience before we wrap up?
I
Anything
don't,
else?
you
Oh,
matter. You matter. You matter. You matter. Yep.
that's so
I think
beautiful.
that's the biggest takeaway. And it's going to be okay. Tomorrow's a brand new day and this world needs you. We need you. So please stay.
Your love is like I could feel your energy from the first moment, from the first call we got on. I'm like, this is probably one of the warmest women I have ever met in my entire life. So
No.
thank you for sharing your love with everybody. If people are interested in taking an art class from you, we will list your website in the show notes
Yep.
because they can book directly through your website, correct?
Mhm. Yep.
And then we'll also list your social media. Is there anywhere else people can find you? Anything else you're working on that you
I
want to share?
we have the studio in downtown Camas, so they can find me there, and then yeah, like the website and Instagram and Facebook. I haven't done TikTok. I don't know if I have a place in TikTok. People are like, I'm getting older, right? So I'm like, TikTok, really? Do I really need to do that? But people are like, yes, you do. So who knows? But those are the places I am for now. And yes, they can sign up for classes. And like I said, we're still kind of newly. We just got an assistant at our studio, so we feel
Yay,
pretty cool now. And she's young, so she's great
official.
and she knows all the tech. And so, yeah, like we're really official now. We're going to be having some holiday events down at the studio. We're going to do some ornament making, and those are, I mean, they're going to be beautiful ornaments, but they're more about just gathering people around the table and letting them have some connection because the holidays are so hard for people. It's not,
Mhm.
It's just really hard starting from this time. The weather gets yuck. Here where we live in the Pacific Northwest, rainy and it gets dark early. And so I think I can feel myself gearing up and making it feeling like I want to be present more to be able to be that little bit of light for somebody if I can be
Mhm.
during, whatever day. So yeah, so that's what we kind of have going on now. I'm working on a credential for, it's called Art for Healing. And I spoke about it a little bit before, is where we kind of use color for instead of words. So that I will be offering that, and it's for people that have gone through abuse or neglect or trauma, mainly. I mean, it can be for anybody, but I'll be having workshops for that, and I think that's going to be great. I really want to take that out to the community and work with them on that, because I think that's another. It's not exactly the same thing as I do in the studio, but it's not a therapy. But people are able to take it to their therapist then, if they're working with a therapist, and kind of explore like what meaning that painting has. So that's another cool thing that's going to be coming up for this next year. So I'm excited about that too.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Heidi, for
Thank you
all of
for
this.
having me. It was fun.